Your mind is either a grand palace of peace or a suffocating prison of shadows, and most people are trapped in the darkness of their own thoughts without ever realizing they hold the key to the exit. This is the story of a young man named Marco, who was only 24 years old but carried the weight of 1,000 years on his tired shoulders. Marco lived in a small village nestled deep within the emerald embrace of the mountains, where the air was crisp, but his heart was heavy with an invisible burden. His mind was not a sanctuary, but a turbulent storm that never stopped howling, because he was constantly haunted by the ghosts of his past and terrified by the shadows of his future. Every single day, a relentless vortex of thoughts swirled inside, his head making him feel uneasy and exhausted beyond measure. He had forgotten the simple magic of a smile and the sweet taste of a deep sleep, because his brain was always busy calculating what went wrong yesterday and what might go wrong tomorrow. The villagers often saw him walking with a furrowed brow and eyes that looked but never truly saw the beauty of the world around him. Marco felt like a prisoner in a cell made of his own anxieties, and he desperately craved a moment of absolute silence. One day, a glimmer of hope reached his ears when he heard about a legendary wise man who lived in a secluded village high up in the hills. This man was not just a hermit, but a former famous psychologist from the great city who had abandoned the noise of the world to find the truth in nature. People whispered that he possessed the secret to taming the wild horse of the mind and bringing tranquility to the most chaotic souls. Marco felt a surge of determination and decided that he must find this man, even if it meant traveling across the rugged terrain for days. The journey was long and physically draining as he climbed steep paths and crossed roaring rivers, but his mental exhaustion was far worse than his physical pain. Finally, after many days of searching, he reached the quiet village in the hills and found a small house covered in vibrant greenery. On the porch sat the old man with his eyes closed, looking as peaceful as the still waters of a mountain lake. Marco approached him slowly and spoke with a voice that trembled with desperation. He pleaded with the grandfather to help him stop the endless cycle of thinking, because he wanted peace more than anything else in the world. The wise man slowly opened his eyes and offered a smile that seemed to radiate warmth and understanding. He did not give Marco a lecture or a book, but instead, he stood up and invited the young man to his yard for a special task. The old man picked up a clear glass and filled it with water until it was completely full to the very brim. The water tension was so high that even the slightest vibration would cause it to spill over the sides. He handed this glass to Marco and gave him a challenge that seemed simple yet impossible. Marco had to walk from the house to the very edge of the village and return without spilling even a single drop of the water. If he failed, he would never learn the secret of peace. Marco took a deep breath and gripped the glass with both hands as if his life depended on it. He began to walk with the precision of a tightrope walker. The road was narrow and bustling with the energy of daily life. As Marco moved through the streets, he encountered a world of distractions designed to pull his attention away. Children were running and playing in the dirt while their laughter echoed through the air. Shopkeepers were shouting their prices and calling out to every passerby to buy their wares. Dogs were barking at shadows, and the sound of iron wheels on stone created a rhythmic clatter that filled the ears. Normally, Marco would have been overwhelmed by this sensory chaos, and his mind would have started racing with judgments and worries. But today he had no room for those thoughts because his entire existence was focused on the shimmering surface of the water in his hands. Every step was calculated, and every muscle was tuned to the balance of the glass. He did not look at the sky or the people or the shops, because his eyes were locked on the water. Time seemed to slow down until the past, and the future vanished into nothingness. There was no yesterday where he had made mistakes, and no tomorrow where he might fail. There was only the weight of the glass and the stillness of the water and the movement of his feet on the ground. He reached the edge of the village and turned back with the same intense concentration. When he finally arrived back at the porch, the glass was still perfectly full, and not a single drop had kissed the earth. Marco felt a strange sense of victory and handed the glass back to the smiling old man. The grandfather asked him if he had seen the children playing or heard the dogs barking or noticed the busy market. Marco looked surprised and admitted that he had seen and heard absolutely nothing, because he was only focusing on the glass. The old man laughed softly and explained that this was the great secret he had been searching for all along. He told Marco that peace is not something you find in a faraway place or in a special meditation, but it is something that happens when your mind stays in the present moment. When you focus entirely on the task at hand, there's no space for fear or confusion or extra thoughts. You were not sad about the past, and you were not afraid of the future, because you were busy living in the now. Marco felt a profound shift inside his soul as the realization washed over him like a cool breeze. He understood that his restlessness was caused by his mind being everywhere except where his body actually was. The sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the hills as the birds flew back to their nests in the trees. Marco bowed his head in deep gratitude and thanked the wise man for showing him the truth of the spilling water. He started his long walk back home, but he was no longer the same restless young man who had arrived days ago. He had learned that the mind is like a wild horse that must be trained with discipline to stay on the path. He now knew that by keeping his focus on the present moment, he could find the silence he had always craved. The world had not changed, but his perception of it had transformed completely. He realized that life is a series of moments, and if you miss the present, you miss the entire journey. Marco returned to his village and started living with a new sense of calm and purpose, because he finally understood that peace is an internal state of being. He stopped leaking his energy into the past and the future, and instead he poured his entire spirit into every single breath he took. The restless traveler had finally found his home within himself, and he never let the water spill again.